let's start off by how you look at your introduction to gymnastics in general.
My introduction to gymnastics.
Yeah.
Well, it's I could have went to wrestling practice with my father, or I could have went to gymnastics practice with my mother. I actually did both, and we'd sit there and be like, where do you want to go today? I'm like, oh, I'll go this way, I'll go that way. As I was in later in high school, I think I started going to more gymnastics practices, or actually earlier than that. And just really, I saw the enjoyment that she got from coaching her teams, all of her teams. And there were great days, or she'd come home in great moods. There were days that she didn't come home in great moods, and she went through everything from A to Z. And for me, it was just a way to to really I mean work with her a little bit. I love my mother, I love both my parents, but you don't get a chance to really work side by side. So for me, it was like, well, I'll go into the gym, and I just started doing it. I learned as a spotter at first. I used to play football and all these things and bench press 300 pounds and all that stuff. And and she was like, stop her from hitting the ground, like get between her and the ground, if you can. So that's really how I came up, and then picked up the technical things later. But as she told me, I always had an eye for the sport. So I decided it was never to make a career of it. That was never the intention starting out. I want to state that for the record. And that's what she told me. Her, my dad told me the same thing. They said you should really choose your own path. You have the ability to do that. And I was in college. I was majoring in business. I went to University of Vermont for grad school, majored in public administration there, and but really started just to have fun with the sport, and made a lot of friends. The gym community is a tight-knit community, but it's a fun community, and it was easier than most part-time jobs for me. And I just said, okay, I'll do this. I'll do this. I'll go here. I used to go to all these different camps and do all these things, and
Right.
collaborate with a lot of my friends on things. And I had an opportunity to use my skill sets to help get me into grad school at University of Vermont. I should have not got in. Thank you, University of Vermont. And Nini Anjay, who was the head coach at the time. And go figure, I just ran into her at the airport like 3 weeks ago.
Wow.
And she came to a home meet here, and she came up to me and she's like, "It's been a long time," and I'm like, "Yes, it has, about 30 something years." And just shocked that she was there, and I thought that was just a full circle moment for myself, being a head coach here, and and talking to the person that, besides my mother, gave me my first shot. Nini gave me my first shot to go to Vermont and be on her staff a long, long time ago, and then I was presented with an opportunity there to be, hey, do you want to be the head coach? She left to pursue a different opportunity, and I was still in grad school at the time, and there was a men's
Wow.
team and a women's team, and the men's coach, which was Gary Bruning, he was just a phenomenal guy, and he was director of both programs. And he said the men's team, that takes up all my time. He goes, do your thing there, and coach the women's team, and we'll collaborate, so on and so forth. And that's really how it started. Um, and I was, coordinating a lot of the recruiting there. And if you're a coach and you can't recruit, you're going to be in trouble. It doesn't matter what division you're in; it's the lifeblood of all your programs. And really, kind of, had a knack for that. And it was not a full-time position. It was 8 months. I think it was 8 or 9 months. So I had 3 months off. So I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. I have summers off. And it was never about the money. It was always about the experience. And that's really how it started. I definitely I enjoyed helping people, helping the gymnasts, but also seeing immediate results, because I said,
Mm.
okay, I could go work in the corporate world, and I would do this, and I'd sit in my cubicle or things like that and pass this off to this department and this department and this department. And I was like, I'm kind of more of an outdoorsy guy. I like moving around and things, and I didn't want to just do that at that time in my life. So I said, I'm going to stay over here on the coaching side of it. I think there was a big pay difference between the corporate side and the
Yes.
coaching side at
Yes.
that point.
Yes.
But that is how it started. And when I first started coaching, my mother, Jackie was still at Brown University.
Wow.
So she was
Okay.
still a full-time coach there. So we were in the same conference. They were the Ivies and we were all in the ECAC. So we had to play each other twice a year.
That is funny. Wow. Really?
So she never beat me. That was one thing. I said I
Okay.
want to set the record straight for that. But I mean I heard it either way. And it was something that I mean you just can't. I have a my home office. I have a wooden plaque. It was a paper article that someone laminated and sent to me. And it was one of the first times that we played each other when I took my team down there and a reporter covered it. So it was just it was a really cool thing. I see that every day. I've looked at that plaque every day for, gosh, 30 years, over 30 years in my home
Wow.
office. And there's not a lot of, I think, kids that get to play against one of their parents
Right.
in the same sport. It's out there. I always get a kick out of when the Patinos play each other. The basketball coaches because I
Yeah.
mean that's what it's like. I mean, your parents always want you to do well, have a good day. But there's no one ever loses. No one ever loses, and I learned. It was she was my biggest critic, but also my biggest fan. So I have a habit
Yeah.
of talking a little trash in those rivalry things, and she's like, "You still have to come home for the holidays. I'll lock the door, change the locks." So
That's true.
yeah, it was a great time, and both our teams and universities enjoyed it.
That is so cool. And and speaking about things, and you're talking about a couple things from our end and from my end, really, from the Women's Sports Foundation and from gymnastics, talk about her impact in Title IX, because I don't think enough people know the story. And did you realize it because you being a male athlete, one, but you're a coach, and I know that in the earlier days, it was a challenge for us. But talk about how you saw your mom and her relationship with Title IX.
Sure. Well, I think it all started, really when you get a phone call one day or you hear the rumors going around the hallways that there's going to be changes and there's going to be cuts. And to even today, people still hear those rumors in the hallways and they get those phone calls. And at the time, no one, Title IX was like, well, what's that? What's that? I mean,
Right.
and her athletic director Arlene Gorton, because the departments were kind of split. So Arlene's the one that hired her. She obviously didn't want to lose sports. She didn't want to lose women's sports at all. And so when they made the cuts, it was all like, oh, like okay, let's wait and see about let's wait and see about this. Let's look at some things and let's see what um, steps can be taken to switch this to learn about it. And that's when Arthur Bryant and Lynette Labinger, their attorneys, were like, "Hey, we have a case here," and no one ever thought that the gymnastics team at Brown University would take on the mighty powers of the Ivy League Tower, the
Yep.
private university, the private funding, and they hired one heck of a law firm too. I'm from Rhode Island, and their law firm was really good. I was like, how are we going to win this? And I actually spent the summer going to the courtroom every day.
Wow.
So I spent the summer in a courtroom, and it was really they cut four sports at the time. They did that. They reinstated some, but gymnastics really seemed to be the one that they wanted, and I couldn't figure that out. It didn't cost too much money. She was part-time,
Hmm.
at the time, and then but so many of the things about Title IX, about the equality, it goes much deeper than just the proportions of male to female athletes, that percentage.
Right.
That's just part of it and the mirroring of that percentage to your campus population. But
Hmm.
when the layers were peeled back, it was like, hey, what's their budget compared to other sports? What is their scholarship amount or their merit amount or their square footage in the locker room or their square footage in the
Hmm.
facilities or in the travel budgets. All of that came into play. And there were just very large discrepancies
Yep.
um, in this case, but also it made a lot of other athletic departments take notice, I think, and say, hey, we need to look at our books and see, are we equal or are we just so far off that, we could actually potentially be sued. There was a amazing article that was written about in USA Today long time ago. This is after the case came out. And what it did is it showed the comparisons between what athletic departments spent on male sports and female sports. And there was it was a 70-30 split
Yep.
at the time. And I think it just made a lot of people wake up and said, you want to know what? We all have to do better when it comes to equality between male and female sports. I think we're still saying that today.
Yeah.
We're
True.
not perfect. We're making progress, but it's progress. It's not perfection. And you can just look at so many cases over the years that shows that there's still a way to go. And when it came to, we were there in that time at Brown, she went through a lot. Um, it was hard because everyone knew it's like, why are you suing us? This could lead to I could lose my job or more sports
Mm,
could be dropped and all these things. And with her, it was always about her team. She's like, I'm going to be fine, but she was someone that, she fought for equality. Hello, certainly at that time, we're not even diving into the 15 years prior to that. So, she fought for that, and and that's what she was teaching her student athletes. She's like,
mm,
no, you have the right to stand up. You do have a voice. You do matter. And this is something here that we're going to choose to fight. The athletes chose to fight it.
right. Right. That's true.
And she's like, if we all fight together. We're going to win it or we're going to lose it together. But there is some, certainly um, there's going to be ramifications, on either side. And the lawyers are great. The judge is awesome. He was a hoot. Um, and just sitting there in the courtroom and things like that. And I watched her take the stand, and
Wow.
talk about things, and they were firing away like she was guilty of capital crimes and things. I was like, this is but people were trying to prove their point to say, oh no, we're right, we're right, we're right. And then when it was over, they had the injunction, they had the reinstatement, and I think something happened recently a few years ago that Brown tried to drop some sports, and the case still had precedence
Wow.
because it was in the 30-year window. And
Okay.
I think the same set of lawyers came back out and they were like, hey, this, we're still here. So that never happened either. So I think it's something that we have a ways to go. Just I think in today's model,
Hmm.
we certainly have a ways to go, and we can always learn from the past. We can always learn from the past. But during that time, it was not easy. That is for sure. But even though it wasn't easy and things were hard, it was still a lot of fun. It was just about going, competing, playing, getting your education. Um, she was great. She was graduating, tomorrow's leaders. Her alumni
Hmm.
are doctors and lawyers and designers and have patents and all these things. And yeah, that was just a standard.
Wow.
That was certainly the standard. And she was very, very proud of that.
When you look at it now, too, of how brave she was and what she was telling her athletes, it's not always you hear from gymnasts, they're not known to be outspoken and just that way, but and really back in the day too. But the impact, which now that you look at it now and you look at where women's sports, we definitely have a place to go, but boy is it different than when it was,
Absolutely.
right? And you think about her impact on women's sports, because that's how we look at it. And the fact that it's gymnastics, we're like very proud up in here that it was that a Black woman who was doing it. I mean, especially in the world of gymnastics, when this was going on, that she was unusual.
It was very unusual. It was very unusual because the sport, then the country probably had over 200 teams at,
Wow.
close to it at that time, and everyone was dropping. Everyone was dropping sports. Just over probably a 10 or 5 year period,
Hmm.
um, and
Right.
everything. For whatever the reason, they made their decision. They wanted to do that with four sports, and her and the athletes fought it. Arlene Gorton was fantastic. And she was an athletic director, but she wasn't having it. That's for sure. Even if it cost her her job, she's like,
Wow.
this is the right thing, to do. And and she had a great career, at Brown. I remember, I used to, you know, terrorize her office when I was a kid, just sitting in there watching practice. And she's like, just sit here and try not to touch anything. Like I'm really gonna do, so that didn't happen. I'd go through
Right.
papers and I'd be throwing stuff all over the place. And yeah, I was that kid, I guess, infant
That
at
is
the
so interesting.
at the time. But it was family, and and I'm still in contact, with the people that were on her teams, and Brown inducted her into the Hall of Fame a little bit
Mhm.
late. Um, certainly before she passed away, and then she passed on, and then we went to the induction ceremony, and I spoke, certainly on behalf of the family, and
Okay.
a good handful of her athletes that were on that team,
Wow.
the the Title IX team, they were there, and the lead attorney was there as well. So it was a very, very strong, very, very strong moment then. And also the athletic director, who cut the sports, he was there, you know.
Wow.
Yeah, I had a bite my tongue moment, I had to be professional
Right,
in that.
right.
But
Wow.
I always say, there's no reason to hate anybody.
Yeah. No,
Hate,
that's
hate,
it's
hate, hate's a strong word. Half the people that you hate don't know, the other half don't care, and the only person that suffers is you. So I think it's but we won,
yeah, that's a
and
good
we're and
point though.
we're and certainly and we're still winning.
Still winning. That's so interesting. And so tell me, because as we mentioned, now that you're coaching, we talk about, you mentioned something about recruiting. And I have to say that a lot of people do know, but I don't think people understand the gymnastics. So I have an inner city, community team, right?
Hmm.
And the recruiting process, especially for women's artists, it's a thing. I mean, can you just give us a few words of what people can look for, or that's general, right? That you can when you're recruiting. What are the qualities that you were looking for as a top coach?
Well,
For
I say this when it comes to recruiting. I say there's a place for everyone if you want to be an athlete
mm,
in Division One, two, or three. I say
okay.
if you have a chance to be on a collegiate team, regardless of the sport, you should really go and do that because you have a small window to do it. You have 4 years. It's a brotherhood, it's a sisterhood. Um, and if you have that opportunity, certainly you should do everything to take it. But also when it comes to the recruiting piece, it's like, okay, you can want that, but you have to say, okay, like for myself, I say, okay, well, what type of person do we have? What type of student do we have? Where does this person fit athletically, to the things that we need to do, our expectations as a program. And you really have to check all three boxes,
Mm,
and especially now at the end of where everyone's roster capped, due to the
right.
house case. And so you really have to be careful about who comes in because they have to be able to play.
Yep.
I think before in recruiting, we had time to let
Mm,
athletes mature in your program. They
hmm.
come in at one level, and it's like, man, but in 2 years, like, I great person, she's straight A's, but in 2 years, she's going to start. You don't have that flexibility anymore.
Right.
You know,
Hmm.
the roster spots, each one has to produce at the end of the night, and that's a little bit different. It's a little bit of a pivot,
That's
but it's something
interesting.
that I always say there are things you like and there are things that you have to get used to. You
Right.
know,
Yeah, a lot of changes, a lot of
yeah,
changes.
there are, and I think that so we look for those things. We scour the country, and if you're on the other end, if you're the prospect, the best thing that you can do is represent yourself. No one else is going to represent you the best but you and your family. That is number one. You have to
Okay.
figure out the things that you want. Because if you don't know what you want, I can't tell you what you want. I can't, no one can tell you that. This is when you sit down with your group, with your people, your coaches and your family and say, okay, hey, what do you want out of the next 4 years? And you make a short list.
Mhm.
Now let me look around. And that's before you even talk to anybody. But you have to do your research. You have to do your research. It's just not about, hey, who has the sparkliest, leotard that's out there. And
Right.
that's where I want to go. They're all sparkly. And actually, this week we won the leotard, I guess, competition on college gym news, the best leotard. So kudos to my assistants, Kylie and Shelby, who do our designs because I have zero to do with it, for sure. But I am proud of them.
Proud of them to do it.
They put a lot
So,
of hard work into that, and so many other things running our program. Um, but they have to know, the prospects have to have an idea about what they want, and they certainly have to know what they don't want.
okay.
Because sometimes you don't know what you do want, but you certainly know what you don't want. So stay away from what you don't want. Look at the things that you do want. See which programs kind of match up to the things that you do want,
Hmm.
then take it from there.
Right.
But also, you have to look at from the athletic piece too. Is that where do I fit in? If I'm the prospect and I say, okay, these are the skills that I do.
Right.
Who else is doing those skills? This is what I score. How are they scoring? Because you want to be able to play. And no one's
Hmm.
going to bring anyone in that can't play for their programs,
Right.
regardless of who they are. You have to be able to contribute because that's going to make your experience a lot better. Nobody likes to sit.
Hmm.
Everybody wants to feel that they're making an impact.
Wow, that's exciting.
So we
And
got,
then,
we have to look, we look at all those things, but
mm,
I encourage everyone to stay away from what you don't want. Trust your inner circles, which is your coaches and your families, and then you have to check some boxes off. This is what I do want. Now let me go and do my research. The research today on the prospects um, side of things it's easier than the past. Everything's on here.
right.
Instagram, YouTube, all meets are
Hmm.
cataloged with ESPN Plus or on YouTube. You just type in something, you can figure it out. And then you just say, hey, can I see myself here, 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 or here? You know, Campus tours everything's online. Just look, you look
That's
around.
true.
Every
That's true.
statistic is online. But I'm always more impressed with the prospects that do their homework because I like
Okay.
to be impressed. Who doesn't? When you're making
Right.
when you're making a big decision, yes, we have to do our jobs and we have to sell our school and program and values and athletic department and all those things. But when there's a prospect and they have their stuff together and we're sitting there on the FaceTime call, they're sitting here in the office and they have their facts straight, and I'm like, that's impressive. This person is special. Might
That's
have to
good
go
to
with that.
know.
Might have
Yeah.
to might have to move along, move quicker.
That was good. It's very helpful information, really, as people think about it, because it's a lot for that person. It's a big major decision, and it's a big, you
And
know,
it's scary.
yeah.
It's scary and it's nerve-wracking for kids and families. I mean, that
Hmm.
is for sure.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you one thing, deserve has nothing to do with it.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Just because you might have, done any sport for so long a time, it's like you say, I deserve this opportunity. I deserve
Wow.
this scholarship. No, it's a privilege to be on any team. Any team. It's a privilege. It's not a right.
So talk a little bit more about your kind of your coaching philosophy and what it's like on the NC2A, because not everybody listening is going to understand that world. I mean, it's growing, it's exciting from my viewpoint, the attention, but it's also, it'd be nice to hear it from you as a coach. There are not a lot of Black coaches for sure in the NC2A, right? And so just kind of your philosophy and how you look at women's gymnastics these days,
Well,
NC2A.
just I think I'm the only black male head coach now.
Wow.
Am I?
Yeah,
I have to be.
yeah, we'll double check. The
You
panel
double check.
panel
You
would
can,
have
I
to,
don't know.
but I
I
think
very
so
well
too.
could be. Um,
Right.
but I mean, regardless, I come in, I do my job every single day.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter, what my skin or my hair looks like.
Mm-hmm.
You
And
know,
you've been doing this all your life, so
well, believe it or not, it's the only like full-time job I've ever had.
wow.
That's scary. That's scary in itself. It's
Hmm.
crazy. But it's certainly, my philosophies as a head coach,
Hmm.
and I think that so much goes into running a successful program in 2026. You can take some of the things that used to work. You got to get rid of the things that didn't work. You have to pivot with the new times, the new cultures. But the things that, shouldn't, the non-negotiables, I say,
Uh-huh.
are you have to be a great person, or at least a very good person that's going to turn into a great person. You have to do that. I always look at students that, are academically great to elite because that shows me that they're going to be able to handle the course load and the balance.
Interesting. Okay.
I look at our expectations of we want to be, the best gymnastics program that we can be. We want to climb. We want to continue the climb. We want to compete for championships. We're in the Big 12 this year, last year too. We finished, we second place, runners up last year. We were in the Sweet 16. We'll say, okay, we need gymnasts that we can develop because really player development is super important um, for us because we're going to change about 15% of the things that you do so
Wow.
you can adapt to college.
Hmm. Hmm.
But we have to feel that no, this person can be successful with us in our system, in with our culture. We have a we over me culture here at Arizona, and that's hard for some, because everybody wants
Oh,
to play in the second and do this and do that.
yeah.
But, there has to be a lot of trust, and it has to be, hey, whatever decisions that we're going to make, we have to make in the best interest of Arizona gymnastics, which might not be what's in your best personal interest at the time, but certainly it's in the best interest of our program. And those are responsibilities and decisions that, I don't take lightly. I know that everything that I decide usually affects about 30 people when it comes to, coaches, support staff, student
Right.
athletes. And it takes a village. There's four events in gymnastics. I mean, I coach tumbling and floor and vaulting. Kylie is over on bars. Shelby is over on balance beam. We're going to add another coach here. Probably in a few months at the end of the season. And we have the events that go on, but then we have everything else that goes on.
Right.
Which
Okay.
which is huge. Everything from our marketing stuff, our social media things, our apparel contracts, our academics and the day in and day outs of those things to our donor relations or our NIL
Mm.
programs. All of these things that we're saying, hey, this is where we are, but this is where we want to be. That's a daily grind.
Right. It's a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a lot, and I would say it's not a 9 to 5. Because certainly as a head coach, it's never a 9 to 5. Your phone is always on. You have to be balanced and you have to be able to unplug, but it's kind of few and far between it. And I know a lot of head coaches know exactly what I mean, certainly when I say that. But we have to look at all those things with the program. And then we have to add people to the mix, knowing that we're going to add,
Mm.
and then 4 years later, hopefully, we're going to reload. And it's a constant moving figure eight.
Wow. Yeah.
And
Hmm.
but we have to take all those areas and try to say, okay, we need to try to be elite, try to play at the highest level, try to market ourselves at the highest level, try to recruit at the highest level, try to coach our friends at the highest level, try and make uh turn an 18-year-old coming into the best human being that they can be after a 4-year period.
Hmm.
Help them become the best student they can be and take advantage of every opportunity, that we have here. It's internships, co-ops, all those things. So you're ready in 4 years to get a job and not go home, on the couch. What both my parents were teachers, and so I think the education part is just in my DNA. And with me, you have two options with our program. You can go to grad school or you can get a job, but you don't go home.
Oh,
And you
wow.
can't, you're not gonna. have to go someplace else and repeat your undergraduate education because you had to take an easier major so you would not miss
Ah,
practice and all those things. I don't play those games. You are here to get your education. That is, that is right up at the top of the list. Develop as a person, do highly competitive gymnastics, and all three have to jive. You can't put a round peg in a square hole. And we have, and you shouldn't try to. Certainly shouldn't try to. It's certainly, I've always said that all programs aren't for everybody.
mm-hmm.
That's for sure. You need to find the program that, that is for you. And with me, I'm very transparent and I'm extremely direct.
That's helpful because it saves everybody some time,
Well,
you know?
it's
Yeah.
you don't have to guess.
Right,
And I
exactly.
always say it's like, if you ask me a question, you're going to get an answer. You might not get the answer you want,
But you
but you're going to get one. And I think that everyone in our program is very, very genuine, has a great love for Arizona. This is where they wanted to be, whether you're a coach or a student athlete, support staff. And when you're in the place that's your place that you consider home,
Mm,
you will do that much more to make it succeed. It makes the bad days not as bad, makes the good days into great days,
right.
when you're doing that. And that can be on your team or in your workplace or, you know, with your husband, wife, significant other, or whatever. It's like when you have that feeling that no, this is it. We're gonna try to knock it out of the park in everything that we do.
Hmm. No, that I appreciate that. And you were talking about, things that are new or things that are kind of come on your plate and the changes. Let's talk a little bit about mental health because that's a big issue that's getting more attention,
Yes.
obviously, and especially you. So, what are your thoughts and how does your team work with that?
Well, I think with regards to to mental health,
Mm,
it has
right.
always been important.
Hmm.
Um, it's always been important to coaches. It's always been important to me because I always say this is what you do, it's not who you are. Who are you? Who are you first? I always say, please communicate your needs. I say that every single day because we're not mind readers,
Right.
even though we have to try to be sometimes. Um, Open door policies are really important. They have to know that we're here for them. They're there for us. We have their backs. There are times that we have to listen. We have to listen more sometimes than we have to make judgments.
Hmm.
And I think
Yeah.
that having our athletic department here and directors of sports psychology and things and I think doctors along those lines do a fantastic job. And we have a good screen. It's not a screening program, but when everyone comes in as a freshman, we assign a mental health professional and say, hey, just go have a conversation. It's like a high. It's just like two strangers meeting each other.
Well, okay, yeah.
And I remember 5 years ago. No, it was longer than that. I gave a speech at the National Board of Sports Psychologists in Phoenix, and I gave a speech and did a little Q&A after that. And one of the sports psychologists in the stands was like, I feel that I should be involved in, the most important parts of your program. I said, I respectfully disagree with you. And I'll tell you why. I said, because if someone's having a mental block, let's say, I
Hmm.
said, you have to realize that this person is standing 80 feet behind an object of rubber, plastic, and metal. And she's going to run it by 15 miles an hour, go upside down, then go another 20 feet in the air, and she has to land on her feet. In no sport, really, do you have to do that where there's no pads, no helmets, no shin guards,
Right.
no anything.
Right.
And I
Hmm.
said, if you I want you to be part of my program, with our professionals, but you will have a better understanding of what the athletes go through if you come by practice and you observe. So when someone goes to see you, it's
Yes.
like, hey, I watched practice. Tell me about this. Tell me about that. And it just helps you meet everybody where they are,
Hmm.
whether it's a coach, coach to coach, coach to athlete, coach to one of our mental health professionals. When they can meet the athletes where they are because they understand about what it is they're trying to do,
Right.
assuming that the conversation is about sports, is
Mm-hmm.
about their
Right.
craft.
Mm-hmm.
It makes it so much easier. So, if you're talking about, let's say, competitive anxiety, which is very popular in all sports, you can say, "Well, I've watched you practice. I've come to your meets. If I'm the athlete and I'm in that person's office, I'm going to be a lot more comfortable
Yes.
with I've seen you in practice. I've explained kind of what I do, and you were in the stands and you saw me crush it. But I need someone to talk to. I need a little bit more help here,
Mm-hmm.
and then I believe that person, whoever it is in a lot better space to help that student athlete at that
Yeah.
time.
That
Yeah,
makes sense. That really does.
and
I
and that and
appreciate
that
that.
relationship can go on and continue, whether it's an athletic
Mm.
conversation or a personal conversation. When there is that communication and there's some trust that's already been laid down, um, I believe you're only going to get better, you know.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I do. And when you're talking about being in a certain place, because I'm in New York and we just finished our 10-year snowstorm of 20 inches, and I know Rhode Island was slammed, if they're not
Slammed.
still slammed. How's it? You don't have those winters anymore.
Oh, well, now, no, I don't. I don't. But I tuned in the news and I was like, oh, and I saw like the videos, my brother's family sent me, and I'm like, how the dog wasn't even going to go outside. I mean, it did. It's a big lab, and
Yeah.
they made it outside and jumped all around. But I think I lived in Vermont, for 5 years. It's 0 degrees and and plenty of snow. So, do I miss it? No. Do I like to look at it? Yes. Do I miss driving in it, scraping cars and shoveling? No, I don't
Gotcha.
at all.
At all. I'm sure you don't, especially now. I mean, now.
No,
Woo.
no. I mean, I think it's, I don't know what it is today, 80 degrees. And, all my friends, we have our text group, my back east people, and,
Right.
you know, I'm just waiting for the plane to land and everyone crash at my house,
I know. Yeah, seriously.
trying to get out of the weather there.
We are all thinking about that. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, yeah. I send videos from the weekend from the golf course, and they send shoveling snow, and I'm like, well, it's all
Yeah.
choice.
Yeah, okay, it is. It
Yeah.
is. But I tell you, it's been such a pleasure talking with you. It's nice to sit down. Thank you for taking the time. Are there any other things you wanted to bring up?
No,
Yeah.
I appreciate you reaching out. I've seen all the work that you've done, for my mother, and over the years. I know she really appreciated it. And she
Hmm.
being from New York, of course,
Yes.
New Yorkers watch out for each other.
Yes, we do.
So she's from
Yes,
the
we do.
Bronx. So she really appreciated it. I appreciate reaching out, and you guys continue to keep her legacy alive, in her sport. That does mean a lot to me, and it means a lot to her athletes that are out there in the world and that still refer to her as coach. She's still coaching me. She's mom. But I know she's coached everybody, but just to have the ability to share her with everyone, all of you, all the athletes, everyone in the sport of gymnastics, especially in the Northeast, that's something that's just really special and close to my heart. That is for sure. But so I appreciate that. I
Well,
appreciate
thank
you
you.
reaching out and asking me my crazy story. That's for sure. And but like I said, I took a lot of the things that that she taught me and my father taught me, and she never beat me. Just let's make sure of that.
We'll make sure we'll get that one out
Yeah,
there, okay?
she was 0-6, but um, there you miss the phone calls before the meet and after the meet.
Right.
Those missing those sucks. Like not getting those suck.
Hmm.
Anyone that's lost their parents can relate to what, certainly to what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But like I said, especially when your parents were also in the same sport, it's also just at a different level when, she'd watch a meet on TV and my tie was crooked or, I chewed too much gum or, all these things. And I take off, like I put my phone in my Apple Watch in my locker so I couldn't get the message, like, zzz, zzz,
Oh, that's
and then
funny.
by the time I get back there, like I had a list of things to do. I haven't even changed shoes, and I had to do some things. So I always say, with everyone, it's like cherish cherish your parents. Sometimes they are hard on you. You don't, but I said cherish the relationships because you're not always gonna have them. Enjoy the people around you and do what you love and love who you do it with because it makes all the difference in the world. It makes the good days great days, makes the bad days, you know, just a day that you want to make better.